If we don't take power, we will never have power.
There's an international definition for what reparations means. So reparations, under international law, there are 5 forms. And you cannot call a reparations program a full and effective reparations program unless it includes all 5 of those forms. I first kind of want to do some grounding work. So to your point, you just made an amazing point about how do you define reparations. The lamest term is simply making amends for harms done. But as someone who studied reparations from an international context, there's an international definition for what reparations means. So reparations, under international law, there are 5 forms. And you cannot call a reparations program a full and effective reparations program unless it includes all 5 of those forms. So compensation or cash payments, that's the first form of reparations under international law. So if anyone tries to tell you that you can have reparations without cash payments, they're fooling you. Cash payments is a necessary element of reparations under international law. Then quickly, restitution, that's a second form of reparations under international law. So that looks like, for instance, land back. Over decades, we've had Black Americans being dispossessed of their land, right? Restitution under international law looks like taking account of that historical fact. Rehabilitation is a third form of reparations under international law. So that could look like free health care, free education from cradle to grave, free mental health services from cradle to grave, things like that. And then the fourth form of reparations under international law is satisfaction. So that's more symbolic, like a formal apology from the United States for its role in slavery, for instance. And in some ways, we've already seen satisfaction, where we're seeing, for instance, the taking down of Confederate monuments, the renaming of streets. So that's a sample or an example of what reparations means under satisfaction. And then the fifth form of reparations under international law is guarantees of non-repetition. So that gets at a more structural and institutional policy change. How do we get the United States, local, state, federal actors to stop harming us? And I know Ben can probably can talk a bit about that, but I just wanted to just ground us, but also to develop comprehensive reparations proposals for this unique group of people. So the task force was formulated officially in June 2021 after Governor of California Gavin Newsom signed AB 3121 into law, which created the task force. So from June 2021 to July of this year, the task force, which comprised of 9 members, of which I served as chair, we traveled across the state of California. We hosted over 16 public hearings. We held dozens of community listening sessions across the state to hear from Black American residents about what they wanted in the form of reparations. And at these 16 public hearings, we invited over 100 people to provide either personal testimony about the crimes against humanity, the harms that they've endured in the state of California, either through housing segregation, houselessness, the devaluation of Black businesses, mental, physical harm and neglect, so on and so on. We also heard from expert witnesses who gave expert testimony on these issues as well. And so what was the result? What was the end product? So the task force, we produced a final report, which is over 1,100 pages long, which chronicles the harms against the Black American community, not only in the state of California. Since statehood, California was admitted to the Union in 1850, but it also chronicles the harms of Black Americans nationally. So in each of the 13 chapters of the report, we don't only focus on California. We also have a separate section that focuses on the federal government and its role in perpetuating the lingering badges and incidents of slavery against our community. Just to take a step back to your first question, if I can, just providing a bit of historical context. I want everyone to be clear. Our ancestors were enslaved in this country for 246 years. We've actually been enslaved in this country longer than we've been free. As Ta-Nehisi Coates said in his article for The Atlantic, the case for reparations. It's only been 160 years since slavery was abolished. So think about that. Our ancestors were enslaved longer than we've been free. And then also I want to add, when I went to the Whitney plantation, for instance, that's one of the plantations that my ancestors labored on in Laplace, Louisiana. It was a sugar plantation. I learned there that our ancestors many times were working almost 24-hour days, no breaks, right? And so that's important to note, because in terms of the historical context for reparations, why reparations? We're owed reparations for 246 years of free labor, working 18 to 24-hour days, no breaks, right? Enslavement, that was a trillion-dollar industry, the transatlantic slave trade. Now when you look at the domestic slave trade, from 1820 to 1860, that was, what, $160 million enslavers profited from the domestic slave trade. In today's dollars, that's over $15 billion. So essentially, again, not only are we owed reparations for the transatlantic slave trade, because our ancestors were the victims of the first brain drain out of Africa, okay? Not only, we weren't brought here just because we were strong, we were brought here because of our brains, we were brought here because of our agricultural knowledge and other skills. So, and that's wealth that we were denied and divested from. Not only that, many Black Americans, whether we acknowledge it or not, we have some European ancestry through rape. Now, as someone who is a lawyer and has studied trusts and estates, we were divested from wealth via trust and estates, because the masters, who are the rapists of our families, we couldn't attain any wealth from their wills or their trusts, because we weren't considered their family, even though we were born from them in some instances. So not only, when we're talking about 246 years of enslavement, not only are we owed from the sheer forced labor, but also it's a unique argument when you look at trusts and estates and how generational wealth is passed down through families. We were denied that, right, because of forced rape in the system of slavery. Not only that, though, so not only are we owed reparations due to enslavement, but we're also owed reparations for what the task force defined as these lingering badges and incidents of slavery, right? After slavery, we had 90 years of Jim Crow, 60 years of legal segregation. Now we're there, a war on drugs, mass incarceration, over-policing. These are all lingering badges and incidents of slavery that disproportionately impact our communities. So I am going on a tangent a little bit.
Oh, that's perfect. That's perfect.
I'm gonna bring it to you. So, couple things. I've read the report, all 1,100 pages. All 1,100 pages. And to Attorney Crump's point, this is a battle that's going to be fought on the internet and AI and misinformation. Yep. And for all of us here, I mean, I'm in Florida, so I'm in that state where the governor is passing those bills to block the education and change history, so on and so forth. And so, much to the point that we make about financial literacy, where it was held from us, we no longer have that excuse. Because of EYL, we no longer have the excuse to say, you know, I don't have access to financial literacy. When you have a sister like this and her partners who have gone and they put together an 1,100-page document detailing exactly what happened to us, it's our responsibility to take that information and disseminate it to our kids. Sit them down. Don't rely on the public school system and everyone else to do it. We gotta keep them under pressure. But when you have that information right there at your hands and you can just go and click online and all of it is there, and you can sit down a couple hours a week with your child and educate them a little bit, it won't matter what happens to them when they go to back to school, because as opposed to the school educating them, they'll be educating their friends and they'll be educating the teachers, letting them know exactly what's going on.
If we don't take power, we will never have power. So I want to start there. If we don't take power, we will never have power. I worked in education for 20 years. I started as an elementary school teacher, became a high school guidance counselor, and then I was a middle school principal for 10.5 years. And I saw and I lived the pain and suffering of my students and their families every single day in our public schools. I also come from a single parent household, live in the projects, grew up in some tough circumstances. I was sick and tired of the conditions that my students had to endure without anyone in the political arena taking action on their behalf. So whenever our kids are hurting themselves or hurting each other, whenever our families are dealing with lack of affordable housing, living in food deserts, dealing with police brutality, our elected officials by and large are silent. And the person that was in this congressional seat, Elliot Engel, for 31 years, was not speaking to the pain and suffering and the issues of our community. So the reason why I took the leap of faith to run for office is because our kids were dying and no one was saying or doing anything about it. Now, how do we win? Elliot Engel had millions of dollars. He had 31 years of institutional power and practice. I was a political unknown. No one in the political arena knew who I was, but people in education knew who I was. So I had served children and families for 20 years, so I knew I had thousands of families. 90% of them would probably get my back. I don't know about the other 10%. But it was all about the grassroots organizing. See, billionaires control Congress. They decide who they're going to fund and who they're going to help win elections. But organized people beat organized money every time. So I launched my campaign a year before the election. Me, staff members who are here with me tonight, we were knocking on doors in the district for an entire year. And we didn't knock on doors of the people who vote all the time. We went into the projects, we went to the hood, we went to the community that nobody speaks to. And we told them, we're not just running from us, we're running for all of y'all. And they came out. We tripled voter turnout in 1 year. And we tripled turnout amongst people of color. And we won that election by 16 points. Now let me go back to the first thing I said. If we don't take power, we will never have power. If we don't organize and demand reparations, we will never have reparations. So when people tell you, you gotta vote, you gotta vote, you gotta vote, and people say my vote don't mean nothing, I'm not gonna vote, there are district attorneys, and I know Ben is gonna get into this. You gotta elect your district attorneys. There are district attorneys winning elections by 20 votes and putting black people in jail for years on bullshit marijuana charges and nonsense. All the issues we care about, it's not just about voting, it's about holding the people of Congress accountable. You need to have a relationship with your U.S. Senator, your members of Congress, your state reps, your governor, your mayor, your local officials. You need to be writing them, emailing them, and calling them consistently. Because if you're not, other groups are, and that's why other groups get reparations and everything else, and we don't get it. So my theme today is going to be about building political power.
And in 1950s, you had medical racism running rampant in America. I mean, you had the black man in Tuskegee, Alabama, be victims of the Tuskegee syphilis experiment. And then you had black women in Mississippi be victims of the Mississippi appendectomy, where they would go in for routine medical treatments and they would give them hysterectomies and sterilize them. The most famous of those thousands of black women in Mississippi who got sterilized was Fannie Lou Hamer. Y'all know the civil rights icon who said, "I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired." When she was 23 years old, went in for a routine procedure and got sterilized, could never have children for the rest of their lives. And that was intentional. And you had brothers in World War II who were being put in gas chambers with faulty gas masks because they were evil people. They wanted to study the effects on the human body in a gas chamber if they had no protection. And the brothers who did survive, if they complained about it, they would court-martial them. And so that's what we were dealing with in the 1950s. And at Johns Hopkins Hospital, one of the leading medical centers in America, in Baltimore, Maryland, they were experimenting on black people, using us as guinea pigs, as lab rats. They were experimenting on us. It was so bad, Brother Andrews, when we were preparing for this landmark lawsuit that we bought, we talked to older black people in Baltimore, and they said, yeah, when we were young, we were all taught, you don't walk by Johns Hopkins at night if you black, because they would snatch you. They were the original body snatchers. I mean, and so Henrietta Lacks went in for her stomach was hurt. They said she had cervical cancer. They never tried to treat this sister. They put radiation rods inside her lower abdomen, and they took her cells out. They never tried to treat her. Y'all do understand how harmful, how fatal radiation is to the body. My little brother's battling lung cancer, and he keeps going through rounds and rounds of chemotherapy because what they want to do is try to use the least amount of radiation as possible. Well, not with black people back then. They didn't give a damn about us. They put those radiation rods on this young woman and took her cells because they were trying to find out if cells could regenerate outside the human body. And those radiation rods, she lived 8 more months, and she died a horrific, painful death. And it is almost biblical, y'all, about the story of Henrietta Lacks, this black woman, because she contributed so much with these cells, because what happened is her cells, for the first time in the course of human history, you had a human being's cells that could regenerate outside of the human body. And I am not surprised in the least, Dr. Denise mentioned that it was a black woman who had the strongest cells, the most miraculous cells that could regenerate outside the human body. And in fact, they were so miraculous that they regenerated every 24 hours. I mean, the scientists were astonished. What was it about this black woman's cells that every day would regenerate, then that cell would regenerate? For over 70 years this happened, and pharmaceutical companies have made billions upon billions upon billions of dollars off this black woman's cells. And her black family never received not one red cent, even though these pharmaceutical companies have made all this money, and everybody contributed from Henrietta Lacks. For every medicine, every vaccine, every scientific medical research in the last 70 years, it came from them using her cells to experiment with and operate on. Y'all know her story. Oprah Winfrey made a movie about it about 12 years ago, The Immortal Cells of Henrietta Lacks. Her family are telling the story of the untold story because they're going deeper. They're talking about her horrible death. But the truth of the matter is this here. If you've had a shot, if you've had medicine, penicillin, COVID vaccination, or you benefited in any way from medical research in the last 70 years, then it is arguable that you got a little Henrietta Lacks in you too. Women, all women of color, only had a venture capital money. They only had 0.0006% out of all the trillions of dollars of venture capital money, all of your pension funds that y'all pay into the retirement, they only had that little amount. But because of these courageous young sisters they were able to raise it to where women of color then made up 0.039%. And you know what Edward Bloom said? Oh, that's too much. Those black women are having too much. Think about that now, y'all. They only got less than 0.04%. He says that is too much, and he sues them for discriminating against white people, saying that you're only giving grants to black women and brown women and native women, and that's discrimination. And so what we have to do is be strategic, because these enemies of equality, they're attacking everything. I mean, they're passing legislation, congressmen, that say we can't teach black history in the classrooms anymore. They're passing legislation saying get rid of everything with diversity, equity, and inclusion. They're passing legislation saying that, you know, it's mandatory that they teach our children that slavery had positive benefits for our ancestors. So why say all of that? The same way they're coming after Aryan and the Fearless Fund, they're coming after our children's future too.
That was a lot. Let's take this moment to ground ourselves, ground our thoughts, ground our emotions. Take a deep breath in. Full exhale out. Deep breath in. Let's take this moment to express gratitude to our ancestors. Gratitude for those of us who are fighting for us now. Gratitude for those who are protecting us now. Gratitude for this body that we are in. Gratitude for our breath. Gratitude for nature. Gratitude. 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 Let's take this time to manifest our desired outcome. Let's picture ourselves living boldly, unapologetically, loving on ourselves, loving on our community, picture ourselves being able to go to the doctor knowing that they have our best interests at heart. Who is your doctor? What would that look like moving forward? Just picture ourselves financially stable, financially free. throughout life abundantly. With love, peace, awareness, and abundance in health and wealth. Remember our breath. Always. Gratitude to the breath. We are divinely guided and protected. We are loved. We are loved. Our time is here. Our time is now. Receive all that is ours. I receive all that is abundantly mine. I embrace what is mine. I'm grateful for what is mine. I'm grateful to have received this for my family, for my generations to come. Gratitude. Ashe. The world is mine. The world is yours. The world is ours. We are safe, secure, and free. Thank you for watching this video. I hope that you got exactly what you needed. I hope that you will stand for what is right and receive what is owed to you. Thank you.